Hello, I'm Corin Power with the Algonquin Area Public Library District. Welcome back to our community playlist, where we discuss the topics that deeply affect members of our community today. In this episode, we will be discussing homelessness. Please join me to feel and heal together. There are several different reasons why someone may experience homelessness, whether it's episodic, temporary, or chronic. Roughly about 30% of the people who are experiencing homelessness are families with children. We have several resources at the library and can help connect you with people in the community that can provide social services to assist further. Our story this evening is a woman experiencing homelessness due to mental illness and the family who loves her. Please join me in reading Aunt Pearl. This one is written by Monica Culling and illustrated by Irene Luxbacher. Aunt Pearl. Aunt Pearl had no home of her own. She slept wherever she could. Sometimes she crashed on a friend's couch. Sometimes she holed up in a hostel. In summer, she slept on the city benches. "That's not how it should be," said Mom. "Pearl will live with us." Dan and Marta had never met Aunt Pearl. She arrived pushing a loaded shopping cart. "I'm here," she shouted, "and I've brought all my worldly goods. Now which one of you is Dan and which is Marta?" Aunt Pearl was strange. There was no doubt about it. A man in a beat-up van arrived with boxes and bags and more worldly goods. "Tomorrow's garbage day," hinted Mom. "I can help you sort things." "This isn't trash, Rose," Aunt Pearl replied sharply. "It's my life." Marta was only 6, but she knew a problem when she saw one. Aunt Pearl crammed all her stuff into the garage, the basement, and her bedroom. "Your bedroom's a mess," exclaimed Marta. "It's packed to the rafters," added Dan. "It's organized," replied Aunt Pearl. Dan and Marta were used to fewer things. Mom liked a house to be neat as a pin, with nothing out of place. At dinner, Aunt Pearl wore her hat covered with buttons. "Make yourself at home," said Mom. Dan and Marta knew what that meant. "Please take off your hat." Dan read one of the buttons out loud. "Normal people scare me." "I live by those words," said Aunt Pearl, chewing chicken. Dan read another. "Keep calm and hop along." Marta sprang up from her chair and hopped all over the room like a bunny. Mom said she had a headache and went to take an aspirin. During the day, Dan and Marta went to summer camp. Dan liked it. He was learning how to use a camera. Marta didn't like it. She wasn't learning anything. I'm off to see what passes for trash around here, said Aunt Pearl one morning. I'm coming, yelled Marta, and lickety-split she was out the door. She really doesn't like camp, said Dan. The houses on the street stood side by side with garbage bins out front. Are you homeless? Asked Marta. Aunt Pearl gave her a look. I live with you, don't I? I mean before. Aunt Pearl didn't reply. She was rummaging through a bin. Well, looky here. Aunt Pearl shoved a doll with scrappy hair and one eye into Marta's face. Marta shrieked, Ugh! That doll's creepy! Aunt Pearl tossed it into her shopping cart. Why do you go through garbage? Asked Marta. People are forever throwing away perfectly good things, replied Aunt Pearl. I give stuff a second chance, like that chair over there. Marta raced over and plopped into the kiddie chair. I'm giving this chair a second chance, she shouted gleefully. The two scavengers trekked home with their treasures. Mom didn't want to give the chair a second chance. Mom, please, whined Marta. That filthy chair is not coming into my clean house. And that was that. Marta asked Aunt Pearl to come to camp, but she was busy in the garage. Maybe tomorrow, she said. I'm making a present for your mom. If you haven't noticed, we're in the doghouse. Marta didn't know what that meant. It means that if there were a doghouse in your backyard, you and I would be living in it. Marta thought this was hilarious. She got down on all fours and barked, Arf, arf, arf. You are one strange girl, muttered Aunt Pearl. The next day at camp, some of the kids laughed at Aunt Pearl, but she didn't notice. She dumped out a sack of bottle caps. You guys are going to help me make a new top for this table. When Mom saw the wacky table in front of her white couch, she didn't look happy. Then slowly, she smiled. Yay, we didn't have to live in the doghouse, yelled Marta. When Aunt Pearl wasn't looking for things that needed second chances, she tried to help around the house. That didn't work out. She was hopeless at keeping her room tidy. Once she tried to cook dinner, but hot dogs and baked beans weren't Mom's idea of a healthy meal. As summer began to think about turning into fall, Aunt Pearl grew more and more quiet. She didn't bother much with garbage days anymore. Every week, Marta brought out her wagon. I'm ready to give things a second chance. But Aunt Pearl just stared into the ravine at the bottom of the yard where the trees grew tangled and green. Marta knew when someone wanted to be alone. One night, Aunt Pearl woke the whole house. She was outside pacing and talking to herself. "What's the matter, Pearl?" asked Mom gently. "It's 3 a.m. "Did you have a bad dream?" Marta asked, taking her aunt's hand. "I've had many of those, sweet girl," said Aunt Pearl, softly patting Marta's head. One morning, Aunt Pearl didn't come to breakfast. "Why'd she go?" asked Dan tearfully. "She left her stuff." Marta was quiet. She knew a mystery when she met one. She also knew she would miss Aunt Pearl on garbage days, and every other day, too. The library has many items that talk about homelessness, also mental illness, addiction, foster care, and several other topics related to homelessness. If you would like to get resources of social services available in our community, please reach out and we'll be happy to help. See you soon.